Saints coming off a year, a little disappointing. Thought they were going to win the NFC South with their schedule. They just restructured Derek Carr to free up all that cap space. He's got a cap hit close to 50 now next year, but it doesn't matter. We got $30 million more in cap space right now.
So the Saints, even with the readjustment, are still $40 million over the cap. So the Carr thing is good, but they still got work to do.
That'll change soon.
Yeah.
They'll get back. I did hear Mickey Loomis in an interview, I think on the Sirius NFL channel, kind of hint at, you always use the credit card analogy, right?
Yeah.
The credit cards do. I think he hinted at okay, let's reset this thing. Now we'll finally reset it. I don't know what that looks like in practice, because the Saints do always have a year where they get rid of a whole bunch of players. They can't sign everybody.
Right.
They push money, but they still find a way to bring in other free agents too. So they're doing all those things all at the same time. So I wonder if this is a year where it's like a legitimate reset. We don't want to push the credit card more than we have to, and it's more of a youth movement for the Saints rather than going back to the free agency well.
Maybe. I feel like this is the way they operate. I can't really see them changing it dramatically.
Or you just keep pushing it, and it's like, well, at some point I'm going to get fired and someone else will pay it. That's how I would view it.
Yeah. I think this is how they operate with the cap. Let's just move it on.
All right, what are we doing to build around Derek Carr and win the NFC South here?
They are the most extreme version of a team who has a ton of draft picks, but they're all on the wrong day.
Yeah.
They have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 picks on day 3, the day that nobody wants draft picks.
They've picked 14 and then pick 45 from the Sean Payton deal. And then they don't pick another again until 149. So there's about 100 picks in between their second rounder and then their next pick at 149. Yeah. They never come into the offseason with a lot of assets to make things better.
No, they don't.
So what are we doing? Just play better in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, so Derek Carr sort of played the second half of the season, I think, the way that was good enough to be where they wanted to be. It's just the first half of the season he was awful. Like if you got that version of Derek Carr all year, they would have been fine. The receiving group was fine. Everything else was okay. It's just Derek Carr didn't play the way they expected him to for at least half the year, at which point they were already in trouble.
Yeah, teams that don't play up to their potential are just generally annoying, because every single week when we talked about the Saints, it's like, all right, they got the dudes to throw to. The old line wasn't great. They've definitely regressed over the last couple of years. But guys to throw to. Carr he's a good, solid starting NFL quarterback. And in the past, when he's had people to throw to, he's produced, right? So it should have been a good match there. But I think it's similar. Like Michael Thomas hits free agency. I don't know how much any team is depending on Michael Thomas at this point going forward in his career.
Right.
But you got Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. Juwan Johnson took a bit of a step back, but still like a pretty athletic tight end who can work the middle of the field. So add another dude out there, shore up the offensive line, and you should be able to create offense. One of the big questions, Ryan Ramczyk maybe dealing with retirement, and that he's just been so consistent since 2017 when he's been out there and healthy. That might be a starting spot that they need to attack immediately.
I mean, if Ryan Ramczyk retires, the entire offensive line needs to be overhauled. There's like no starter left that you're comfortable with.
Yeah. Is Andrus Peat a free agent? I see him on the free agent list, but not on my depth chart here. Trevor Penning at left tackle hasn't necessarily developed.
Trevor Penning hasn't been good.
Eric McCoy is the one consistent piece up front.
But Trevor Penning supplanted James Hurst, who was actually playing solid at left tackle. James Hurst was bad at guard, so you made 2 spots worse by moving Trevor Penning, your first-round pick, into the starting left tackle spot. Unless he takes a huge step forward, there's one spot on your offensive line that's solid if Ramczyk walks away.
Yeah. So I think that might need to be where to me it's both defensive, both the lines again. Remember last year at this time, or before the season, we said they've moved on from the Trey Hendricksons and Marcus Davenports over the last few years, but they've drafted a bunch of guys. Peyton Turner in the first round. They've drafted high. Brian Bresee last year, Isaiah Foskey, needed those guys to step up. Don't know that we got it last year. It's really still Cameron Jordan hanging on in year 13. Carl Granderson's been good, but I think they need help on the D-line and the offensive line.
Yeah.
It's all in the trenches with pick 14 and 45 right up front.
Yeah, I think you look at their receiving group and you would say they're fine. Chris Olave is good. Rashid Shaheed is a great deep threat. A.T. Perry can probably take a step forward and at least come close to replicating the version of Michael Thomas that currently exists. Obviously not peak Michael Thomas. Juwan Johnson's a good tight end. Taysom Hill's a great gimmick. The backfield still has Alvin Kamara. Derek Carr has been solid. The line is terrible and worse if Ryan Ramczyk retires. And then, yes, defense, you either need a huge step forward from a guy like Brian Brzee or you need an addition of, like, an injection of talent there, or both.
How do you do this with so few picks? Oh, man. It's a bind.
I mean, so if they're the most extreme version of that dynamic we talked about, right, 7 draft picks on the wrong day, what do you do with them?
I've said with the teams that have, I wonder if you can flip those. So if you have the cap space, I want to flip a 5 or a 6 for a starter, right? Yeah. For a team that's trying to cut
they have 4
cap.
5th-round picks.
Yeah. I mean, in a perfect world, the teams that have those picks this year, and we're banking off of what Nagy's saying. At a glance, let me see how, is that true? Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of, I'm not seeing a lot of green or blue on day 3. So I think at a glance, Nagy's probably right.
Yeah.
As far as what day 3 looks like. If I have one of those picks this year, I want to try to flip them for a starter, for a team that's actually trying to cut salary. But I don't think the Saints are in position to just, take on $8 to $10 million for a 5th-round pick. So I don't think that's going to work. So just draft them and hope that they're okay.
You just use all your.
I mean, I'm trading into next year if I can.
Yeah.
Try to trade into next year and move up around. But again, that means someone else is going to have to want to trade up and take one of those picks for this year. They're going to have to like enough players, so you got to find trade partners. But I think the best way to use those this year is for veterans, especially if the cap is up and you're just sucking up a contract for a year.
Yeah, I'm just looking through lists of potential cap casualty people because that's never gotten us into trouble before, but not because of guys that could get released, because any potential cap casualty is also a potential, hey, would you
should trade for David Njoku.
Right. Hey, would you take a 6th-round pick for this guy that you might be cutting anyway?
Yes.
Cam Robinson is a player that surfaced on a cap casualty list because the Jags obviously drafted Anton Harrison. They have Walker Little, who's played better at tackle than guard.
Would actually be an upgrade at tackle for the Saints.
Absolutely. So, like, maybe the Saints could flip a 6th-round pick for Cam Robinson, take on his bloated contract, in addition to the guys you already have, but that would absolutely upgrade the offensive line.
Now we're stitching it together on the O-line. Maybe Penning has to move to right tackle if Ramczyk retires.
Now the problem is a lot of
Penning
these cap casualty lists are all the same players, and they're all players that don't help.
Yeah.
A lot of running backs.
It's also from January. Might be old, right?
No, I'm looking at a current one.
Oh, okay. That's good. Don't look at the one that had Njoku on it.
I mean, we mentioned David Bakhtiari before with Green Bay. He's also a similar option for New Orleans, albeit probably one that doesn't make as much sense.
I'll say this, at 14, though, all of those edge rushers that we talked about, I think most mock drafts have the Saints going D-line, right? Jared Verse, Latu, the guys that we tend to like there, Dallas Turner, who we don't love as much there, but all those guys seem to be in play there in the first round.
I mean, trenches, defensive line, offensive line, both I think would be in play at that pick.
I like it. So that's what we're doing. We're invested in Derek Carr. Is there any other thing that you said the receivers are fine. I mean, we always joked about how good Rashid Shaheed is. He was an awesome deep threat. Olave is a good high volume guy. What's the other type of receiver piece that you might want to have there? Or you trust in A.T. Perry?
Yeah, I mean, it's the possession guy. Like A.T. Perry, I think you can, if you ran into the season and you expected A.T. Perry to be that guy, I don't think it would be terrible. But if you doubled your chances of that by bringing in another body, that's not bad either.
I think Roman Wilson would be a good fit there for them. Another route runner to get open. With Carr, I always want one dude that's going to stretch the field. I think they have that with Shaheed. I think they have what they need, man. Just got to play better in the red zone. Get the best out of Derek Carr.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. All right, anything else for the Saints?
No, I mean...
They're a tough one in the offseason because you can't
Well,
can't
they're
just
always in such a hole that they don't have,
And honestly, I don't even know the exact intricacies of how they are going to maneuver things yet.
Right. You need to see where they end up before you can see how much resources they actually have to spend.